Every Halloween, my friends and I have a tradition of walking through our town's haunted trail. It's run by volunteers, and it's not super professional, but it's always a fun scare. You walk through the woods, and people in costumes jump out at you from behind trees. This year we got there a bit late, so the trail wasn't as crowded. We were maybe halfway through when this guy in a clown mask appeared out of the bushes. At first we laughed. It was part of the act, right? He didn't say anything, just stood there, watching us. Then he started walking toward us, slow and deliberate. I thought, okay, nice touch. Creepy. But as we moved along the trail, he kept following, never jumping out again, just walking behind us. It got uncomfortable fast. "Is this guy part of the show?" my friend whispered. No one was sure. After a few minutes, I stopped and said, "Okay, man. Good job, you got us. Time to scare someone else." He didn't respond, just stood there, breathing heavily behind the mask. My friend grabbed my arm. "Let's just go," she said. We picked up the pace, but every time we glanced back, the clown was still behind us, keeping the same slow, steady pace. My heart started racing. Finally, we reached the end of the trail, where one of the staff members stood near the exit, handing out candy. We told him about the clown following us, expecting him to laugh it off. Instead, he frowned. "We don't have anyone in a clown mask this year," he said. We turned back toward the woods, but the clown was gone. The staff went searching for him, but they didn't find anyone. We left without waiting around for answers. I don't know who was behind that mask, or what they were planning, but I haven't been back to that trail since. I was home alone one Halloween night. My parents had gone out for dinner, and I had the house to myself for the night. Around 9 p.m., just as I was about to start a movie, someone knocked on the door. It wasn't a normal knock, it was slow, deliberate. I wasn't expecting anyone, and it couldn't be trick-or-treaters because we didn't have our porch light on this year, so I ignored it. But the knocking continued. 4 knocks, evenly spaced, then silence. I got up and checked the front door through the peephole. There was a woman standing on the porch, her back turned to me. She wore a pale blue dress and no shoes, her long hair tangled and messy. She stood perfectly still. I hesitated, then called out, "Hello?" The woman didn't move, just kept facing away from the door. After a long pause, she spoke. "Can I come in?" Her voice was quiet, like she was speaking to herself. Every part of me screamed not to open the door. I told her I couldn't help her and that she needed to leave, but she didn't respond. She just kept standing there, unmoving. After a few more minutes, I walked away from the door and went back to the living room, hoping she'd leave on her own. That's when my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mom. "We're almost home. Can you unlock the door?" That was strange. They always had their keys. I texted back, "Where are you?" She replied almost instantly, "At the front door. Hurry, it's freezing." I looked down the hall toward the door. There was no one there, just the woman, still standing with her back to me. Another message came in. "Why won't you open the door, sweetie?" My stomach dropped. I called my mom, heart pounding. She answered after the second ring, her voice calm and a little distracted. "Hey, honey. We're still at the restaurant. What's up?" I stared at the phone, numb. Then I heard the woman at the door start humming softly, a strange off-key tune. I hung up and crept toward the door to peek through the peephole again. The woman was gone. But when I turned to go back to the living room, I saw it. The back door, locked when my parents left, was wide open. It was Halloween afternoon, and I was running late for work, but I still had to pick up a pumpkin for the porch. I swung by the local pumpkin patch, grabbed the first one I saw, and threw it in the trunk of my car without thinking. When I got home, I left it by the front steps and rushed to change for work. As I locked the door behind me, I noticed something strange about the pumpkin. It had some kind of stain on the bottom, a dark, reddish smudge. I figured it was just paint or a kid messing around, so I didn't think much of it. I worked my shift, came home late, and almost forgot about it. But when I stepped out the next morning to grab the paper, the pumpkin looked different. The stain had spread, dark and wet, almost as if the thing was rotting from the inside out. And that wasn't the worst part. There was something carved into the side of it now, something I knew hadn't been there before. Not a face or a typical jack-o'-lantern smile, but a symbol. It looked almost like a handprint, crudely scraped into the surface. That night, I decided to throw it out. I grabbed the pumpkin and walked it to the trash bin. But as I lifted the lid, I noticed a terrible smell coming from it. When I glanced down, my stomach dropped. Inside the pumpkin, there were maggots, hundreds of them, layered over what looked like raw meat. I tossed it in the trash, slammed the lid shut, and went back inside. A few hours later, I heard a knock at the door. I opened it, and there, sitting on my porch, was the same pumpkin. Fresh as if it had never been touched. I picked up the pumpkin, and on the back of it, it said, "Happy Halloween." My friends and I camp a lot. We've hiked through dense forests, slept under the stars, heard all the usual strange noises, but nothing ever really scared us. Until last weekend. We'd found a clearing deep in the woods, a good spot to set up camp. As the fire crackled and the night wore on, we took turns telling stories. Around midnight, it was my turn. But just as I started, we heard something moving in the trees. It wasn't loud, just branches snapping and leaves rustling. At first, we thought it was an animal, but it circled our campsite slowly, too controlled for anything wild. We shined our flashlights into the darkness, but saw nothing. Then something spoke. A voice, low and garbled, like it was mimicking human speech but didn't quite understand how. It came from just beyond the tree line. "Help, please. I'm lost." We froze. The voice was too steady, too rehearsed, and it was close, maybe 15 feet away. But no one had approached the camp. We would have heard footsteps. One of my friends called out, "Who's there? Are you hurt?" There was a pause. Then the voice responded, exactly the same as before. "Help, please. I'm lost." It was like someone was playing a recording. We shined our lights again, scanning the trees, but we saw nothing, just branches swaying in the breeze. Then the voice came again, this time from the opposite side of the camp. "Help, please. I'm lost." We grabbed our gear and decided to leave. Whatever was out there wasn't human, and we didn't want to stick around to find out what it was. As we packed up in a rush, the voice followed us, repeating the same words over and over, shifting positions every few seconds. When we finally reached the trailhead and got to the car, we all piled in, slamming the doors shut. As we sat there, catching our breath, the voice spoke one last time, this time, right next to the driver's side window. "Help, please, I'm lost." There was no one there. We drove off and didn't stop until we were miles away. Later, I checked the GPS app we'd used to track the hike. The last point it recorded? It wasn't where we set up camp. It was from the woods, right where we heard the first voice. And the timestamp showed it was taken 2 minutes after we'd left. I love Halloween, and every year I go to the local Halloween Day parade with a few friends. It's always a good time, with floats, costumes, and kids trick-or-treating. This year was no different, until I noticed him. It was a man in a long black coat, walking slowly along the edge of the crowd. His face was hidden behind one of those old plague doctor masks, with a long beak. At first I thought it was just a cool costume. But something about him seemed off. He wasn't enjoying himself like everyone else. He didn't wave, didn't stop to chat with people. He just kept walking, staring at the crowd from behind that mask. I pointed him out to my friends, but they shrugged it off, saying it was probably just some guy being weird. As the parade moved along, I noticed he was always nearby. No matter where we stood, he was there, at the edge, watching. I tried to get a better look at him, but every time I moved closer, he'd blend into the crowd and disappear. Toward the end of the parade, I finally lost sight of him. I told myself it was nothing, just a strange coincidence. But later that evening, as I was leaving the festival, I noticed something on my car windshield. It was a small piece of paper with the words, "I saw you." Beneath it was a hand-drawn symbol, a plague mask with hollow, staring eyes. So guys, if you're reading this message, I won't be attending next year's Halloween parade. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. I finally made it to 1,500 subscribers. That's a huge milestone for me. So I want to take the time to say thank you for all your support to bringing me closer to my dream. If you're new to my channel, hit that like and subscribe button for more horror stories like these. Happy Halloween, everyone. And as always, stay safe and stay scared.